Hello, everybody. Welcome to Southern Washington. Dan says, looks like the old gang is all here. All right, Dan, we see you, man. Are we functional? I'll check in right away and ask if we're doing okay. 5x5, audio and video. Hi, Lynn. Geologically speaking, Todd. Ronnie, Shy Ronnie's in the house. The Geekus in Alabama. Joe says it's 5x5. Joe's from Ellensburg, by the way. Noetic what? Huh? Dayton, 5x5. Thank you. Yes, where are you viewing from? And also just making sure that we're communicating. Hello, Montreal. It's good in Yakima, says Dan. John is in Edmonds, Washington. Everybody here got real quiet. Okay, we do have people here. But before I show you the people, I want to make sure we're doing okay. We're scrolling more and more. Don's in Los Angeles, 5x5. I love seeing the numbers 5x5, which means loud and clear, which means, Garrett, the Dutch night owl, is with us. What time is it, Garrett? Is it midnight? Brussels, hello. Bergen, Norway, hello. Wyoming, good to be here. I agree, it's good to be here. Good to be anywhere, actually. Oh, this crowd is quiet. They are well behaved. We haven't even started yet. Okay, so you want to see these guys? Welcome to Maryhill, Stonehenge. Powell in Poland, hello. You guys can wave if you want to. You can watch yourself in replay later. I don't know, maybe you're too cool for that. Bryce the Rock Licker is here. Clint, a student from class this morning, drove down. Yeah, I won't comment on the dog. All right. Good. People are still rolling in. Full. I have 2:50 p.m. So we will not begin the program for another 10 minutes. So of course, if you're watching this in replay form, I encourage you to skip ahead 10 minutes. Otherwise, it's too quiet here. You guys, please, you know, you can chit chat. Come on now, it's okay. This is nothing. There's nothing going on. I'm saying hi to more folks here. Josie is in Boise, hello. Sharon, hello, howdy. The view through my tube in New Zealand. I can't say your town's name, sorry. Charlie, Michael in Ireland, hello. And Nee, your daughter, I believe. Melissa's in Tri-Cities, Washington. Bonnie's from Bellevue. Matt is in Vancouver, Washington, possibly BC, who knows. Elaine is in Tucson. Who are our live chat people again? Just raise your hand if you're volunteering. Hey, Bryce, can you are you going to check your phone? Bryce. Well, I can do a change of grade form for Bryce.
All right.
If he doesn't check that live chat. I think he earned an A, but we can make that change easily enough. John is in Albuquerque. Wonderful. Good. Yeah, I can come. I'll let you. I'm going to visit with folks. I also need to get my head right before we start. Oh, it's still 10 minutes to the hour. What the heck? I jumped the gun, man. Or did my watch stop? What the hell? Let's say how. Yeah, a few more where you're viewing from. We have about 250 from all around the globe, and I don't know, what do we have? 150 here maybe so far?
Close.
Close? Scott, do some counting, would you please? Just kidding. North Carolina, Angola, New York, Louisiana, hi Kent, Tampa, Florida, Reston, Virginia, Jennifer from Boise, you're a regular, thank you Jennifer. North Queensland, Australia, isn't technology amazing? Jill's in Australia, Barcelona. Little window into my, I got to behave here. Half Moon Bay, California, Avery, California, hello. Jesus. All right, I need some water.
Oh, your thing's gonna fall over.
just made this loose. Thanks for joining us. It's just water. We have folks that have driven mostly from the greater Portland area, the greater Seattle area, a little bit from south of Eugene, Oregon. So a mixed group, shall we say. Washington and Oregon, and maybe something else thrown in. Idaho, I don't know.
Eastern Oregon, Hermiston.
You're from Hermiston. Hey, great, wonderful. So glad you're. Are you a farmer?
No, retired.
Retired. Excellent.
An old earth science guy from Boise State.
Are you really?
Yeah, Claude Spinoza, Monty Wilson, all those guys.
Spence Wood, those guys. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Were you a working geologist in that area then?
Oh, I ended up teaching a little high school.
Okay.
Earth science,
Nice.
biology. Those are great guys. That was fun.
Yeah. What vintage were you there in Boise? 70s? 80s?
Yep.
Oh, I must have just missed you then.
Field trips, we'd go to the grocery store and we'd have shopping carts with nothing but beer.
It was a different time. Shall we say that?
No, this was called.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can't even do that anymore. All right. Okay, I guess we'll be about right here. And no, you're going to be here, and I'm going to go visit with folks. We'll start in 5 minutes. Thank you. Who haven't I said hi to yet? You guys are all set. I don't think I've said hi to you, have I? Okay.
This young person's going to be a geology major.
You are?
Hi.
Wonderful. Hi. Where are you going to go to school, or where do you go to school?
At the moment, I go to school. I am a high school student.
Yeah.
Oregon, Forest Grove High School.
Okay.
I was telling him about your school, but
Yeah, there's a college in Ellensburg, Washington.
Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
Is Marley Miller here?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I did visit with her earlier this week down in Portland at a conference. Yeah. Do you know her?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I've got a book I'd like for her.
Oh, sure. If I see her, I'll let you know, but I don't expect her to be here.
Do you read the comments afterwards?
Sure, yeah.
Some of them are pretty funny.
Yeah, some of them are. What you need to do is do it differently. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, Lisa, okay. All right. Oh, seriously, I got to concentrate here. Did my clock stop? Is it?
You're just too anxious today.
I guess so. I got to go take a walk. I'll be right back.
Just remember that big rock in the middle of Stonehenge. That's for human sacrifices.
I'll get you on camera again. This is like the whole thing's rigged to have you on camera, man. Hey,
How are you?
good.
House cleaning item. I don't know if anybody is going to be heading home that direction
Okay.
afterwards.
Yeah.
But there's no services for almost 90 miles that direction.
Okay.
I don't know if people know that. Because the sign is before. They
Yeah.
won't see it when they leave here.
Well, thank you.
I don't know.
I
That's
think
even
I'll.
worse.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things.
Yeah. hopefully they got this far in life that they. Thank you.
Walters mentions that he can see all the German chocolate cake in the background.
Oh, who says that? Matt, you can see a bunch of German chocolate cake? You're damn right you can, Matt. Yeah, shall I give you? My glaring? Oh, I didn't think you really come. That's very nice of you.
Oh, sure. What the heck, man?
All right.
It's cool driving through the countryside. I mean, it's nice to get out of Ellensburg, too, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
Have you been here before?
Yes, I breezed through here on the way to Ellensburg back from going to see Mount St. Helens, I think, something like that.
First time, last week was the first time I even stopped here. But
Yeah. And my mom's fascinated by the Stonehenge, and I'm like, no, this is
Nick, glad to meet you. I'm Scott.
Hi, Scott.
I'm here. We're here from Lisle.
Oh, you are? Hey, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, great. How long have you lived in Lisle?
Oh, we've had a house there for about 8 years, but we've relocated from the Portland area.
Oh, wonderful. How do you like it?
Oh, we like it.
Oh,
We got,
good.
You know, a little country living.
You bet. Oh, well, thanks for coming.
You bet.
You guys talk about how deep the water was here. If you are, I won't ask that question. I won't ask that question.
I will. Okay, I think I'm going to ask one last time just so I don't have to think about it again. Are we still doing okay?
30 seconds.
Thank you. And if we're doing okay, we're just going to get started here. We have a nice group. It's about, I don't know, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe a 15-mile-an-hour wind. I've got the microphone a little further down my shirt than it was the last couple times. Actually, I'm doing it right now, because I am going to be yelling. Some of the folks didn't feel like they wanted to come down here on this slope, so they're up a little higher. So I want to make sure that I can yell loud enough that they can hear me. But at the same time, I don't want to blow you out here with audio. 5x5 Oscar, thank you. Yeah, the dog owner is doing something up there, so whatever. Try my best. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you making the trip. Some of you came from a long, long way away, and I'm going to do my best to make it worth your while here. I trust you can hear me okay. This is about the volume that I'm going to be using. We've got a slight breeze, but otherwise we should be able to communicate quite well. My name is Nick Zentner, and I do not live here. I live in Ellensburg, Washington. That's 2 hours to the north. So this is a little bit away from my normal routine. I have learned a fair amount in the last couple of days, and so I want to share the geology that's beautifully on display here, and then we will go to your questions. And not only your questions here, folks who are in person with us, but I'm going to be extra careful to answer some questions from the live viewers. We have about 500 people now watching from home around the world. And so I'll be going back and forth between your questions and the home viewers. And we have some volunteers in the crowd to read the questions from the home folks. If you've seen the other pop-up geology events that we've done so far, there's a certain format that I kind of like, so I'm going to do it again this time. The first part is me just pointing out landmarks, and that's part of my homework. I didn't know some of these landmarks, so I'll see what I can do. We got some local folks here as well, and I'm going to twirl the home crowd as well so that they can view. Maybe they'll even look at Google Maps while we're doing this in real time, for all I know. And I'll be real descriptive then about the geology. In other words, I'll just try to share some of the basic geologic entities that are here in this beautiful stretch of the canyon. And then and only then will I start telling some stories. And I don't know what you expect me to talk about here. You can probably guess. I might have a couple things up my sleeve that you're not expecting to hear about, but I guess we'll find out when we get there. I want to keep this at 30 minutes or less. We'll see how it goes, but 30 minutes, kind of brisk, just using the view that we have. There's no handouts, there's no maps, there's no anything except for a sheet of notes in my back pocket, and that's all we'll use. And then we'll kind of rely on you to keep the show going as well as the home crowd. Okay, that's the plan. All right, the wind has just picked up. We lost our direct sun, but we'll see how long that lasts, and I'll give the home viewers a chance to look. So let's just do some general observation first of all. You are all looking south across the Columbia River to Oregon. That's the state of Oregon right over there, and we are sitting in Washington. The Columbia River, when it was free-flowing, was flowing from left to right, was flowing from east to west, and continued downstream past Miller Island. Miller Island is in the middle of the Columbia River. And by the way, feel free to stand up, turn around, look another direction if I'm talking about something that you can't see from where you're sitting, okay? Don't be bashful about that. Mount Hood is on display, but just barely. So in a perfect situation, we have nice clear skies and we'd see that beautiful triangular composite cone, but oh well, we still have a beautiful afternoon to be together. On the Washington side, in other words, you're looking west now, you're looking downriver. On the right side, or the north side of the Columbia River, are the Columbia Hills. The Columbia Hills with a bunch of wind turbines doing their thing on the skyline right now. So we drop off of Haystack Butte, which is a prominent high point that we can see on the skyline, Haystack Butte. And we can drop all the way down to Miller Island. That's a key spot for us. So he goes to the notes in his back pocket. Elevation of Haystack Butte, again, the highest point in the far distance on the skyline, part of the Columbia Hills. Elevation of Haystack Butte, 2,900 feet above sea level, almost 3,000 feet, almost Snoqualmie Pass elevation for those in central Washington. So we drop almost 3,000 feet, let's say 2,500 feet from the top of Haystack Butte down to the river. But it's not a river, it's a lake. So downstream of Miller Island is the Dalles Dam, constructed in 1957. And the standing water up dam from the Dalles Dam is called Lake Celilo. Some of you know that there were some iconic falls called Celilo Falls in the old river before 1957. Many Native American families living at Celilo Falls and were asked to leave. I mention that because one of the little boys who was asked to leave Celilo Falls was Randy Lewis, the guy that I've been making videos with up in Wenatchee. So Randy's earliest days are down there on Celilo Falls. The falls are no more, they're under Lake Celilo. Coming up this way, there's a bridge. I think the home viewers can see it as well. That's US 97, also known as Sam Hill Memorial Bridge. That bridge was opened in 1962. I was shocked at that recent date. There was a ferry back and forth here on the old Columbia in the 1950s. Some of you are nodding your head. You remember that back in the 1950s. I didn't realize that. So to get across the river here before 1962, you couldn't drive it, you had to take a ferry. If we continue then upriver, so now I'm swinging you all to the east, upriver. Now Washington is on your left and Oregon is on your right. If we continue upriver, we get to the John Day Dam, which we cannot see from here. John Day Dam, the youngest dam, put in 1971. And the reservoir behind John Day Dam, Lake Umatilla. So the elevation of Lake Umatilla behind John Day Dam, 268 feet above sea level. the elevation of Celilo Lake, the reservoir that we're looking at right now, 164 feet above sea level. And you're like, okay, well, what are we? We're at 600 feet. We're at 600 feet elevation right here at the Stonehenge Memorial Monument, built by Sam Hill and his employees back in the 1920s to commemorate the war effort in World War I. And since there have been other additions to remembering those brave men and women who sacrificed in those wars. Sam Hill is a whole nother story. Ironically, super ironically, I got some mail on Monday morning, and it was a book sent to me by Betsy, and Betsy had no idea that we were doing this. She just happened to send this last week, I guess. So I've read a little bit about Sam Hill. I'm guessing you know more about Sam Hill than I, but Sam Hill's fingerprints are all over everything here. This is the old town site called Maryhill, named after a daughter who I'm not sure ever came out here and actually saw the place. That's a long story. This Stonehenge Memorial, the museum over here, the art museum, a former residence, an old gas station, old church. Sam Hill's ashes are down here someplace below us. He died in the early 30s and was born in the 1850s. So anyway, just one chapter among many here in the area. I'm still trying just to be descriptive. What else can I describe, he asks himself. Well, there's some, I'm now swinging you again east. There's kind of some different elevations. From where I'm standing, I can see the skyline of the Columbia Hills with some trees. And then we get down to the wind turbines. And then we kind of have some rolling, kind of bumpy hills. I can do it on the other side of Stonehenge as well. If I swing now to the northwest, same idea. I can see the Columbia Hills on the skyline with the wind turbines, and then I can see some kind of bumpy rolling hills above the busy road. You can see all the traffic there. Still trying to be disciplined, just trying to describe. I want to tell you the story. Maybe you know the story, but I'm trying to hold off, okay? But we lose, especially if we get this side of State Route 14. 14 is on the Washington side going back and forth right behind this memorial. I'll come back over here without flipping this thing off the tripod. There's a pretty prominent bench, right? And then it drops and there's another prominent bench overlooking the river. Those benches are important. Let's see if we can see them across the way. Sure enough, across the river in Oregon, I can see a pretty prominent bench across the way. And maybe I can see a secondary bench, not sure. Even looking into the sun that's starting to come out now, so it might be tough for us. Again, I can see these benches with exposed dark-colored bedrock. In other words, I don't see those benches going all the way up to the top. I see a bunch of cliffy, dark brown, I don't know what kind of rock it is yet, you say, stuff, but that doesn't go all the way up. There's kind of a split personality. I see kind of lumpy stuff in the upper half, and I see kind of horizontal and vertical benches in the lower half. Not only on the Washington side, but even on the Oregon side, way over to that direction here. Finally, a little bit more geography. The romantic honeymoon location, otherwise known as Biggs Junction. Thank you for laughing. I'm sorry if you're from Biggs Junction. Is right there on the Oregon side of the bridge. And there's a Spanish Hollow coming, so in other words, US 97 heading towards Bend, Oregon, leaves Biggs and threads up through Spanish Hollow, Spanish Canyon, what is it?
That's where the Oregon Trail comes down.
That's coming, baby. Yeah, thank you. And Rufus, dinky little town of Rufus. Is that Rufus? No, or is the next drainage over probably? Rufus on the Oregon side. Again, I have stories tied to all these spots, so I'm just trying to lay them out. he goes to the notes. We're at 600 feet elevation. Essentially 500 feet below us is the river bottom. Again, more than 1,500 feet above us is the top of the Columbia Hills. Okay, I'm getting bored, so it's time to tell some stories. And if I'm getting bored, you must be really bored.
Ever.
All right. The last pop-up geology event we did was 2 weeks ago at Vantage, Washington, Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. And at that pop-up, we were focusing on Columbia River basalt lava flows, one of them called the Ginkgo lava flow that had petrified logs in the base of it. And we were also talking about Ice Age floods. Well, guess what? Those same layers are here. Like, I'm 2 hours away from Ellensburg, but these are my old friends who are down this far south, and they continue into Oregon, those lava layers. And it's the same river that we were looking at 2 weeks ago at Vantage. And those same Ice Age floods that were coming down the Columbia over Vantage, those same floods came through here from east to west, and those same floods went all the way down to the Pacific Ocean at the foot of Mount Hood, over Portland, etc. Every drop of Ice Age flood water in the last 20,000 years came right through here. And you know who else came through here? Lewis and Clark. And you know who else came through here? People on one branch of the Oregon Trail came up high and angled their way down and eventually hit Moody Road on the other side of the mouth of the Deschutes River and followed. Has anybody been on Moody Road before? I highly recommend it. It's just a little gravel road that's on, it's in the haze right now, but it's a stretch of the Oregon Trail. It's just a couple of ranches, and below and above Moody Road is highly recommended. You can get on it. Anyway, okay. So more or less it's the same geology at first glance, but there are some key differences. So what's similar to past pop-ups? German chocolate cake, Columbia River basalt lavas, Ice Age floods, blah, 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 whatever. You're just doing the same thing you did last time. Well, here are some differences. At Ginkgo, the petrified logs were within a lava flow called the Ginkgo lava flow. The Ginkgo lava flow is down here right above the river. That's a difference. The Ginkgo flow was up at the museum, right above the museum where we were in Vantage. Now it's way down here. And above the Ginkgo flow is the Frenchman Springs flows and the Rosa lava flow. And above those are these, there's some beautiful fat columns. That young woman is standing on them right now. If you can see her, she's standing on some very fat Tootsie Roll-like basalt columns, part of the Priest Rapids lava flow. And so now you're going, okay, all right, so we're part of the German chocolate cake that's pretty much the same layers that are way over at Vantage, Washington, or Frenchman Coulee, or Drumheller channels, places in central Washington that I know far better than here, and that's all true, but I'll tell you what, if we swing our eyes back to the busy traffic on 14, there is a major thrust fault, which means that we go from Ginkgo up to Priest Rapids. Everybody's in order, everybody's nice and flat. In other words, we're on top of the Priest Rapids and everything's just fine. But then we repeat. In other words, if we go above State Route 14, we're back into the Ginkgo again. In fact, we're back even into a little bit older stuff called the Grand Ronde lavas. So it's like we've got a birthday cake where the bottom half of the birthday cake is below us, but we don't keep going younger and younger in the birthday cake to make up those hills. That's the bottom half of the birthday cake again. We've repeated the section. And to explain the geometry of that, I'm just thinking on the fly here. Let's say we have layers 1 through 5. Ginkgo all the way up to us is layer 5. And then if we go higher, above State Route 14, it starts at 1 again. And we go up to 5 at the tippy top up there. So how is that possible to have 1 through 5 and then 1 through 5 again? That doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. You're correct. Instead, what happened is layers 1 through 5 that were north of us, up by Goldendale and even further north, were broken from the rest of the birthday cake, and layers 1 through 5 were now shifted south on a major thrust fault. This is hard to do. I'm trying. So there's a big crack, a big earthquake fault that's oriented about like this with my arms. Right, those white semis right now, right on 14, and the fault is not flat, it's dipping just a little bit to the north. You see my arms right now? Can you imagine just a big planar crack, an earthquake fault called a thrust fault? And it's that thrust fault that's the boundary between 1 through 5 above versus 1 through 5 below. So another way of saying it is this. I'm going to turn my back to you now, sorry. Because California's been getting closer and closer to Canada, I'm talking about the clockwise rotation and the squeezing in a vise of the entire Pacific Northwest. Because of that, the stuff up by Goldendale has been shoved southward, one earthquake at a time, up this thrust fault ramp. And that takes layer 1 and puts on top of layer 5. So I don't know how much of that you followed, but my point is this is not layer cake geology here. This is not oldest at the bottom and youngest at the top. Instead, it's oldest at the bottom, youngest in the middle, oldest on top of that, up to youngest at the top. Follow that? So I don't know how many earthquakes have been recorded here. Well, that's a dumb way to say it. Train boy. Oregon train. These are all prehistoric earthquakes. We have no historic earthquake on that thrust fault that I'm aware of. And if we did, we would have some sort of earthquake fault scarp to show where the ground broke cleanly. I don't think we have that. Maybe it's a dead thrust fault. But the point is we do have in the Yakima-Folden thrust fault plenty of earthquakes that have been recorded in recent times. That makes us a little bit nervous. There's more of an earthquake story here than we thought just a few years ago. We doing okay? Y'all hear me way up there? Okay, good. That's the headline to me, basalt lava. And you're like, really? That's the headline? Okay, well, let's try something else. Ice Age floods. What's our elevation here? 600 feet above sea level. Very good. Harder question. What's the elevation of Haystack Butte? 2,900. I didn't even remember that. You guys remembered it. Good job. Here's an important elevation marker for you. And I had to call Bruce Bjornstad this morning because I couldn't find it and I was running out of time. I say, Bruce, what's the high water mark for the Ice Age floodwater coming through this stretch at Maryhill? He says 1,100 feet. 1,100 feet. I'm no math major, but that's 500 feet above us. 500 feet above us was the high level mark of the Ice Age floods coming over Stonehenge, over your chair, over that bench on the Oregon side. Like, I don't know, which level is us over there? I'm not really sure. But at least a few hundred feet of Ice Age water needs to be on top of that bench over there. This is something labeled, I don't like the label. It's called Lake Condon. And if you call it a lake, that implies that it's just kind of standing water in here during the Ice Age. I don't like it. Because Lake Condon did exist here. There was 500 feet of water during a big flood right here, but it had energy. Did anybody notice pulling off of 14 and coming into this area? There's a big ravine right over here. I can see it from where I'm standing. There's a whole wedge of loose angular rocks. That's a Ice Age flood deposit. That's a gulch fill from one of the Ice Age floods. There's energy involved. These aren't slack water sediments right here. This isn't super quiet water like at Burlingame Ravine. So I don't like the Lake Condon label because it implies a very peaceful kind of quiet, you know, fishing kind of scene. There was water coming through here, fastest in the middle of the channel, of course, ripping up the floor, the Grand Ronde lavas at Celilo Falls, for instance, creating some of those falls, or at least digging a little bit. And again, our benches, this is the biggest point I have for the Ice Age floods. Ready? Am I ready? I tried to point out that the upper half of the Washington side looks different than the lower half. Again, what I tried to point out is there's kind of some graceful contours in the upper half, and it's real horizontal and vertical in the lower half. Why is that? The Ice Age floods scoured the bottom half. It looks vertical and horizontal because the floods came through and stripped away a bunch of rock and left scablands, essentially. We can see the columns these guys are standing on. We can see beyond to the lower right. That's a scabland look. A bunch of those little pokey-pokies down there. That's a direct result of the Ice Age flood scouring here. This wasn't just a lake. This just wasn't standing water in here. There's gulch fills and stripped surfaces, and that continues all the way down to Rowena. Rowena is a narrow area where the Columbia River hangs a hard right and goes right through this frickin' thing. The Columbia River, you ever noticed on a map or when you drive to Portland from here? You're following the Columbia River. The river right here is perfectly parallel to the Columbia Hills, right? I'm sorry, I gotta go back one more time. So not only, I'm sorry, bad teaching move. Like I'm switching gears like boom. But I wanted to say one more thing about that layer cake business, the 1 through 5 and the 1 through 5. It's not just that the bottom half of the cake has been sent south up the ramp, it's also knuckled over. That's a key point which I just forgot to say. So everything's true, I think, what I said before, where we have thrust fault earthquakes, but as we send this stuff up the ramp, it starts to get folded. This is an anticline, the Columbia River Hills anticline. It's a big arched layer. The vantage sandstones that we had up at Ginkgo are frickin' vertical in here. This is all from Jack Powell, who also called me a couple nights ago. So I see you're talking down there at Stonehenge. That's where I did my thesis. And then just as he's, I don't know, shoveling manure in his barn or something, he's like stream of consciousness telling me all this stuff. I'm furiously writing down in my office. So thank you, Jack, for helping me. But this is a knuckled over stratigraphy on top of that thrust fault, so that's another difference. The upper half is knuckled over, and those are all landslides. It's all lumpy and irregular because that vantage sandstone has been chipped steeply, and it's a soft layer, and so that accentuates a bunch of blocks sliding off of the south side of Columbia Hills. Did I say 30 minutes for this? I'm not even close to being done, okay? This is a good spot. Again, you hear more, that's why we're going to do live Q&A. But that's the main Ice Age flood story. Gravels in the side canyons, a few slackwater sediments here and there, stripped surfaces, but there's a limit to where we have the stripped surfaces. Once we get above that, we're above Lake Condon. We're above that Ice Age flood erosion. And we're into just areas. I'm sorry, I gotta hold, can't hold it. Jack Powell, he was with us at the last one. He was the geologist sitting there and gave that really good answer about petrified wood. So that's the same guy. And Jack said, I mapped all those hills. They're all landslides up there. I spent, I don't know how many weeks mapping up there. I finally realized it was all landslide blocks. And he said they're old landslides, older than the Ice Age. And I just impulsively said, was it possible the Ice Age floods triggered the landslides? Are you sure they're older than the Ice Age, or is it possible the landslides in part were happening because of this drama of all this water coming down and undercutting some of those slopes? He said it's possible. Tough to tough to nail it down, but so it's either during the Ice Age floods that we have a lot of landsliding. Again, I can see them over here. All those wind turbines are on landslides. Again, you're just kind of looking for hummocky topography, kind of rolling hills. I'm just saying that stuff, all that stuff under those wind turbines should be up in solid rock. Now we got a train on the Washington side. This is such a busy corridor, you know. Oh, we got a nice, home viewers, can you see Hood now? We can see Hood a little bit better now. Hey, okay there, engineer. So all the barge traffic, all the canoes, all the trains going back and forth on both sides of the river. This is a long-lived corridor. This is the secret passageway through the Cascades, predating the lavas, predating the hills, predating damn near everything, predating people. We can go back more than 20 million years, and this Columbia River is coming through the Cascades right here. And it's still here today. Many of you drove right through that gorge, and you will on your way back to Portland after this thing is mercifully done. All right, I gotta pick it up, boy. I'm at a 30-minute mark already. I got one more major theme, and I think this will be new to most everybody. I really wanted to point out Haystack Butte. I'm gonna do it again. Haystack Butte is that last far pimple on the horizon, the highest point. It doesn't have a wind turbine on it. Y'all see it? And I also want to point out our end of Miller Island. So we got all those knobs. Again, they've been scoured by the floods, but all those bedrock knobs in the middle of the river, that's Miller Island. And that point that's closest to us is the eastern end of Miller Island. Okay, what am I up to? There's basalt on Haystack Butte. There's basalt on the eastern tip of Miller Island. It's not part of the German chocolate cake. It's basalt that's 900,000 years old. It's less than 1 million years. If you remember, the German chocolate cake is roughly 16 million years ago, and the Ice Age floods is less than 1 million years ago, less than 20,000 years ago. But in between the German chocolate cake building, 16 million, and the Ice Age floods, 20,000, there's this 900,000-year-old basalt lava that's erupting out of that frickin' butte up there and cascading like we're in frickin' Iceland or Canary or wherever, that's cascading all the way down into the river at Miller Island, just the eastern end of Miller Island. This is one basalt. Can you visualize like an orange glow less than 1 million years ago, where this lava is coming down that slope? I wish we could see it right now. That'd be pretty fun. And have that orange lava flow into that old Columbia River floor. That's one of hundreds of volcanic centers called the Simcoe Volcanic Field. It's been on my list for a long time. I still don't know much about it. But I drove through Goldendale. I didn't stop at the McDonald's like I normally do, but I might on the way home. I don't know. Goldendale. Do you notice all the pimples in the valley of Goldendale? Got a couple people from Goldendale here. Those are all cinder cone volcanoes. Lorena Butte, are there other names? The one that the observatory's on top of, every one of those is a cinder cone volcano made out of basalt, but way too young for the German chocolate cake. And I don't totally understand why that field of younger than 1 million-year-old basalt is there. It's been mapped carefully by a geologist named Wes Hildreth from the USGS, who's since retired. Most of it's on the Yakima Reservation. It's kind of the area between 97 and Adams. And if you get on Google Maps and just scan the area between 97 and Adams, you'll be like, what is going on? What's with all those little hills? Each one of them is a little volcanic center, most of it just cinder piling up at the vent. But in the case of Haystack, and maybe others, there's a beautiful little lava flow coming away from it. Similar to some of the cinder cones that are down in Central Oregon. Same general idea. What's going on? Why is this area so special? Those cinder cones aren't in eastern Washington. Those cinder cones aren't in other places. Why in this little triangle area here? Last geology comment, and then we're going to open it up to you. That's my warning to get your questions ready in your head. And home viewers, in a second, you're going to type uppercase, and we're going to have some volunteers, including Bryce the Wonder Boy, reading your questions, and I will be answering them in real time. My last comment is on something called the Biggs Junction Picture Jasper. Raise your hand if you've heard of it at least. Just a few of you, okay. So rockhounds know about this picture jasper. There's a bunch of local names for this stuff, but that's Biggs Junction, and that's Rufus, and there's a triangle between basically the mouth of the Deschutes River, which is beyond the bridge, and the mouth of basically Rufus, and going up to Wasco. I don't even know what I'm talking about now, but I think that's a town. There's a triangle on the Oregon side between those three places. And people, especially back post-World War II in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, were finding a hell of a lot of stuff that's called the Biggs Picture Jasper. It's sometimes called Blue Biggs, Fulton Canyon Biggs, Blue Sky Biggs, Purple Biggs, Deschutes Jasper, New Biggs, China Hollow. This is all from a friend of mine, Jim Landon, who writes gem and rock hounding articles in the Rock and Gem magazine. And Jim sent me some of his writing. He does a beautiful job. Jim, nice job with the writing. And I want to mention to you that I don't have a piece for you. Does anybody have a piece? You'll have to Google Biggs Picture Jasper. And one key spot where they were pulling it out of the hills was up Spanish Canyon, or whatever it's called, on 97 for a while. But there was so much taken out of there that apparently they've closed it. You can't go digging anymore there. I don't really know what I'm talking about. But these key spots, the Biggs Picture Jasper is coming from the Columbia River basalt. It's coming from the German chocolate cake, so it's this 16 million year story. But I'm fuzzy. Jack Powell, the guy that talked to me on the phone while shoveling manure, said, it's basically just a carbon-rich layer, like a swamp or a freshwater lake in between the Columbia River basalt lavas. That's fine. We got that all over the place in eastern Washington. But he says it's been silicified. That carbon-rich clay has been baked or silicified. Kind of like up by my area, there's a bunch of reds and greens and maroons where you get lava baking a bunch of diatomaceous earth, essentially. Somehow this Biggs picture, whatever, I can't even say it, is a little bit different than that. But I'll get off it because we don't have a piece here, and only a few of you even remember or recognize the name. But it's a rock hounding thing to be in this Biggs Junction area, and people have shown it to me over the years, and I just go, that looks really pretty, and that's it. I think that's it. Let me check my notes real quick before we go to you. Got it, got it, got it, yes. What was the high water mark elevation here? 1,100, 1,100 feet above sea level. That's a good high water mark for the Ice Age flood. So if you live in this canyon and your house is below 1,100, you were underwater during at least one of the big floods. And I got to point out that we can't see it from here, but the famous Wallula Gap, which is where all the Ice Age floodwater was stopped and funneled through, is up there. So some of you know about Lake Lewis, where we have this standing body of water in eastern Washington, and that water's waiting to come into this gorge. Well, maybe you're unaware of it, but the water picks up speed once it gets through Wallula Gap. I don't know, maybe it's going 40, 50 miles an hour through here, but it gets stopped again at Rowena. So there's these kind of narrow choke points for that Ice Age floodwater. So the water coming through here kind of picks up speed as it threads through a narrow area, and then it slows down as it gets into a wide part of the gorge, picks up, slows down, picks up speed, slows down. Portland's another place where things are choked, and so that water, that slack water goes all the way down to Eugene. I'm done. Okay. Thank you for your attention. Please raise your hand if you have a couple of questions. I'll repeat them for the home audience, and then home audience, we're coming to you. All right, so in person, yes, Oregon State.
Now this lava flow here, when it happened, we know it was low viscosity.
Yes.
Flowed fast and far.
Yes.
How does that compare with the flow rate that we see like in Iceland and La Palma? Was it faster or slower?
Thank you. The question is, we have these lavas here that we're seeing, basalt lava that has a certain thickness and flow rate. How does that compare to some of the active volcanism we see in Iceland or La Palma that we can actually watch a live stream, right, of that stuff happening now? The difference is volume. The volume here, these flows average 50 feet thick and traveled 300 miles. And so I think the answer is this stuff has to be moving faster, but I really don't know how to back that up with data. So I can't give you a great answer on how the flow rate was different, but the volume is so different that it's kind of a different animal entirely. One more from this crowd before we go to the home viewers. Yes, sir.
All of the chocolate cake lava flows that came down this area are from the Yellowstone hotspot, we think, 16 million years. You talk about the King Kong flow and all those, they're all Yellowstone story, right?
Yes and no. So the question is, are these German chocolate cake layers, known as the Columbia River Basalt Group, are they related to the Yellowstone hotspot? Yes and no. No, in that these lavas did not come from Wyoming and flow all the way to the ocean. But yes, the Yellowstone hotspot mantle plume used to be closer to us because North America used to be further to the northeast. And there is, if we go back 16 million years ago, good evidence that we had a regional heat source not that far away. We need two questions from the home crowd. Yes, please.
So one of the questions is, why is the Columbia River coming through this area?
Thank you. The question from home, this gentleman is your mouthpiece here. Thank you for the question. Why is the Columbia River flowing through here? Well, water follows the easiest path, and so a flippant answer would be, if we go back 20 million years ago, this was a low area, and the Cascades were lower, and this was a place where the Columbia River could easily get out of interior North Pacific Northwest and get to the ocean. And since that time, since 20 million years ago, things started to rise, and these flood basalts came in as well. So it is kind of interesting to look at this entire landscape and a beautiful active cone called Mount Hood and a massive ridge called the Columbia Hills Anticline and other features, and realize they're all babies compared to the river itself. The river itself is far older than everything else, and one of the best places to prove that is to go down river to the Dalles and ask ourselves, why is this frickin' river hanging a right and going right through that ridge? It doesn't make any sense until you realize the river was doing that right-hand turn when the area was flat. And the ridge and the thrust fault and the knuckling has been happening gradually since then. Makes you think, what? From the, you've got a home crowd person? Cascade Graben. Thank you. What was the person's name again?
Crazy's Adventure 447.
Okay.
Asked, aren't the undercones tied to a cascade? Garben?
Graben, yes. Thank you for that. What's your name?
Cece.
Cece. Thank you for doing that. So Crazy Ronnie. Listen, let me tell you about Crazy Ronnie. Crazy Ronnie first showed up about, I don't know, Crazy Ronnie, what was it, like 9 months ago or more? And you were not very nice in the live chat. You weren't. You were hassling everybody, okay, uppercase and everything. And I reached out to you, Crazy Ronnie, and I said, come on now, you're among friends, you don't have to be badgering everybody. And now here you are asking about a Graben coming through the Cascades. Bingo, nice job. Thank you, CC, for that. I only know a little bit about this, But there is something called, oh shoot. There's a graben. Do you know what a graben is? It's a block of crust that drops because the crust is pulled apart. And there's a normal fault on both sides. I was taught it's a German word for grave, but I think I've been corrected a million times, so whatever. But it's this thing that's dropping, and there's faults on both sides, normal faults, because we're pulling the crust apart. Is it called the Hood River Graben? I don't know. There's some kind of new research about an area, I guess, between the Dalles and Portland, including the area where the Bridge of the Gods landslide is, by the way, but there's some faults that are crossing from Oregon into Washington, and a bunch of volcanism is getting progressively younger as you go from Oregon side to Washington side. Like 5 million years ago, 4 million years ago, approached the Columbia 3 million years ago, and then by the time you're in Washington, up by like Indian Heaven, whatever, it's younger than 1 million. I guess what, Ronnie, is that really you? Are you asking that question? That's a sophisticated question, how far we've come. There's no graben right here, Ronnie, that I know of, but I do know that many of the younger than 1 million year old volcanic centers, remember this one was 900,000, they're located on faults, and many of the faults are cracks that are trending northwest southeast. So it's not a total random thing about where these cinder cones are located. Okay, a couple from you guys in the flesh. Yes?
Anybody ever looked at the top elevation of these flows, advantage it here and at the coast to establish a grade? I mean, it's like the river goes downhill.
Yes.
The lava would have gone downhill as well.
Thanks for the question. The question is, has anybody looked at the elevations of the top of, let's say, the Ginkgo flow, and chart that out and try to figure out what the old gradient was? That work has been done, but there are problems. There's been so much folding since that time, and that's one evidence. Oh, okay, now we're going in another direction. We can't really see the core of the Cascade Range here, but we know it's a big mountain range, right? Some of the lava flows that are beneath us did flow downhill all the way to the Pacific, but the lava flow is beneath us at, let's say, 500 feet, and that same lava flow is frickin' 2,500 feet high above Cascade Locks. So we know the lava didn't flow uphill, and so there's been that much lifting in the Cascades since that time. So that kind of paleo elevation has been useful to decide how much deformation has happened since 16 million years ago. That's maybe the best way to answer that for now. Thank you. One more, you guys, and then we'll go back to the home guys. Yes?
There's a bunch of pillow basalt
Yeah.
in the Dalles.
Yeah.
Is that, does that also, is there pillow basalt out this way?
Thank you. There are some beautiful exposures of pillow basalt right at the Dalles, and another beautiful exposure of pillow basalt just west of Hood River on the freeway. Like there's even a place to pull off and look. I don't think it's for pillow basalt, but they pull off. Do you know what I mean by pillow basalt? It looks really super bright orange, and there's a bunch of dark circles, and pillow basalt is the base of one of these lava flows that's flowing into a lake. And so the lava splits into these fingers like these spaghetti noodles, and the lava goes into the water and crackles and steams. The question is there a bunch of pillow basalt here? There is some higher up, but that's another thing that Jack mentioned to me. The Ginkgo flow is here. The Ginkgo flow has pillows, but I don't think there's a lot of petrified wood right here. And remember, we were pulling a bunch of petrified logs out of the pillows at Vantage in the Ginkgo. It's the same Ginkgo that's down there at Miller Island, but I don't think there's any logs there. So there are some younger, maybe Priest Rapids, I'm not really sure which flow has the pillows here, but this is not a famous area for petrified logs, even though we've got the same layers that we had up at Vantage. The closest place I know of from here for petrified logs is on the Washington side, I don't know, 30 miles more, Roosevelt, the dinky little town of Roosevelt. That was always a good petrified log hunting location. Let's keep going. Home viewer questions. You got one?
Kyle wants to know if there are any raft erupted erratics here on the ridges around.
Thank you. That's Clint, a student from my one-on-one class. I talked to him about this morning. I said, Clint, I'm giving a pop-up at Stonehenge. He said, I'll be there. Nice job. Yes, I didn't say it, I guess. The main evidence for our 1,100-foot elevation for the high water mark is not a strand line. It's not like a beach cut whatever like Glacial Lake Missoula. Instead, there are granite rocks, boulders, erratics that you can find on all these hillsides up to 1,100 feet elevation, and not one more granite above. Just like we did at Vantage, same idea. So yes, there are beautiful erratics all through on the Oregon Trail coming over from, is it Wasco, I guess, and then threading their way down to Moody Road at the mouth of the Deschutes. There's old Oregon Trail photos where the big granite rocks are right next to the caravan of wagons. Lewis and Clark, by the way, of course, went down the river in 1800 whatever, 05 or something, and they took note of Miller Island, etc., made a few sketches, whatever, and then on their way back, at least one of them, maybe both, somebody in their party, they were up on these hills. So heading back home, they took the high road, at least one of them did, and described seeing Hood and Jefferson and a few other things. It's kind of fun to think of them coming right through here. The home crowd.
Cindy Carp said,
Cindy Carp, here's your question.
is there any pyroclastic flows cut by the floodwaters?
Are there any pyroclastic flows cut by the floodwaters? Yes, if we're closer to the Cascades. For instance, Mount Hood has had some beautiful pyroclastic flows and lahars that have gotten down far enough that the floods have carved through them. But here, we're too far east. It's just the floods carving into the German chocolate cake. A few more from you guys. Yes?
If you're going on the orient side, you get to the exit for 197.
Yeah.
And you make a left turn, and you're heading toward, or as you go up, skip it, turn around.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of pillow lava right there on the left-hand side, and you have a sign that's saying, no trespassing, because the people will dig it out, and it will cave in. If you want to go down a little further, go down to that road, goes to the right, goes almost into the Dalles itself.
Yeah.
And you'll see a white spot. There's more pillow lava on the left-hand side, and you can dig in that all you want.
Thank you. Thank you for the tip. Are you from the Dalles?
I live in Dallasport.
You live in Dallasport. So a local tip about how to find some of this pillow basalt, just out of curiosity. Again, I don't think there's any wood in that stuff, but that's the Priest Rapids lava flow. And by the way, you just spurred a thought. This is the Priest Rapids lava flow we're on. It came from a vent in far eastern Washington. The Priest Rapids lava flow, 14.5 million years old if I remember correctly, followed the old Columbia River channel, and then stuff eroded on both sides of the Priest Rapids lava flow. And so this flow we're on is the same as what's beneath the Vista House in the Columbia Gorge. It's a weird concept. It's called inverted topography. You have a lava flow following a valley, and you come back 14 million years later, and the thing that filled the valley is now the ridge. But if you can follow that logic, that's the story. And that Priest Rapids flow is pillowed there in many places, including around the Dalles. How are we doing? It's like, yes. Oh, that's an interesting question. I never even thought about that. The Bonneville landslide happened downstream at Bridge of the Gods, at Cascade Locks. And that was a catastrophic slide that dammed the Columbia River completely. And there was a temporary lake that probably lasted longer than Lake Condon did. And that water backed all the way up to Tri-Cities, all the way up to Wallula Gap. So the answer is yes, but I don't remember the elevation. I don't remember. This is like the year 1450. couple hundred years before Lewis and Clark, there was a lake because the Columbia River was dammed by the Bridge of the Gods landslide, and then of course the river has finally worked its way through. All right, I guess it's what are we pointing out here? Yeah. Okay. From the Bonneville slide. From the back wall. Okay. All right. More questions, please. Whether in person or at home. Yes.
The boring volcanoes in the Willamette Valley,
Okay.
and also the Indian Heaven area,
Yeah.
and the one here at the Haystack Rock or
Yeah.
Butte. Is that, are they roughly the same age?
Roughly, yes. The question is, there's something called the Boring Volcanic Field. There's actually a town called Boring in the suburbs of Portland. The Boring Volcanic Field, the Indian Heaven Volcanic Field, the Simcoe Volcanic Field, are they all roughly the same age? And the answer, without knowing a whole lot, is yes. Younger than, let's say, 2 million years old. But there's a lot to unpack there, and I would love to do a whole series of programs on it. I just haven't gotten there yet. Yes?
Why are these newer lava flows producing basalt instead of like an andesite or something?
Great question. If these are such young volcanic centers in the Simcoe volcanic field, and they are younger than 1 million, why are they basalt? Why wouldn't it be andesite or something that's more continental? I don't know. And I did get permission to visit the quarry very close to the McDonald's in Goldendale. Apparently, this episode brought to you by McDonald's in Goldendale. You gotta love it. I took a little tour, and in those basalt cinders are beautiful olivine crystals, which indicates a very deep source, like mantle source. So not only are these Simcoe volcanics and Indian Heaven young, they're also apparently kind of deep. And I don't think anybody's got a good answer. And if they do, I haven't read it yet. A few more before we quit this party here. Yes?
I have one.
Oh, from the home crowd, thank you.
From Elaine Somerville, on the elevated rolling contours, ripples left by the floods.
Elaine, thank you for the question. What's her phrase again? Rolling?
Contours.
Are you talking, so Elaine, you're wondering about the rolling contours that you can see? No, there's no giant current ripples that I can see. If you're talking about those rolling hills kind of in the nice light, those are landslides that slid down this slope, maybe because we undercut that hill by the Ice Age floods. If you're kind of looking further down low, there's a kind of a dark patch. That's where US 97 is, so they cut that. This more gulch fill, in other words, the Ice Age floods dropped a bunch of gravels from eastern Washington, just dumped it into that valley. So I'm not totally sure what you're noticing, but those are some rolly things that I see. So no giant current ripples here that anybody knows. Yes?
Those hills aren't 1100 feet.
Oh.
How far did the flood go inward?
Thank you. So the gentleman points out we're looking across to Oregon, and this is under 1,100 feet, even at the top. I was actually ready for that. Can you all picture crossing the bridge, getting on 97, and you're climbing for a long time, right? You're driving south to Bend, you're climbing through what, Grass Valley, where that old diner used to be. I used to peek into that driving by. And there's another one, what's that? Well, my point is, by the time you get to Shanneco, you're finally done climbing. And that, maybe I'm wrong, but that's like 2,000 feet elevation at Shanneco. So, I mean, it's not as steep as rise as this, for sure. So it's kind of asymmetric here. This is a steep rise, and our floods are like halfway up. I think depending on where we are on the Oregon side, we could be 50, 60 miles to the south and still have some ice rafted erratics coming in. And the steepness here is because of the thrust faulting thing and the knuckling. I mean, it's pretty flat over here, as you can see. There's not major thrust faults for the next 50, 60 miles. How about 3 more and we're done? Anybody from home oh, we got another home crowd. CC's on it again. You're gonna get my workout in here, CC. I'm ready. And that's good, this is great.
Before the Cascades, did the Columbia flow to the Puget Sound area?
Gene Sorensen from Puyallup asks, before,
Just Gene Sorensen.
I think he's from Puyallup.
Before the Cascades,
Yep.
did the Columbia flow to the Puget Sound area?
Before the Cascade, thank you, Gene, and thank you, CC. Where did the Columbia River flow before the Cascades? Did they flow to the Puget Sound? I know of no evidence for that. And the main evidence we have for very old channels of the Columbia River are finding river cobbles of quartzite from northeastern Washington. So if you've heard that, Gene, I haven't heard it. I don't know of the Columbia ever flowing into your area up by Puyallup. Again, this has been a long-lived location for the Columbia River. Unlike so many other rivers that snake their way all over the place for a long time, this is it. This is a super ancient water journey for this Columbia River. I promise 2 more and we're done. Thank you, Grandpa Carl. Grandpa Carl from the Granger Clay Pits. The Columbia River knuckle, the Columbia Hills knuckle hasn't always been there. And before this knuckle started to grow, the Columbia did come over through this Goldendale area. So I am saying it kind of incorrectly, that from this point downriver, that's a place where the Columbia has been for a long time. But there are some paths of the Columbia River coming kind of cross country behind Stonehenge here as quote unquote recently as 15 million years ago.
Did the lava flows ever dam the river?
Did the lava flows ever dam the river? Good question. Yes, each of these flood basalts, we're pouring so much maple syrup onto the landscape that we're making lakes upstream from here. But if we're also talking about the Simcoe story, maybe even our Haystack Butte thing, maybe there was enough basalt to dam the river for a while. But we've had so much of that Haystack lava stripped out of here by the floods that I guess we wouldn't be able to reconstruct that. Last question and we're done. Yes, sir. Well, thank you. I think we'll end it there. Thank you. That's a nice way to end it. Thank you. I appreciate your comments there.
2 hours dark. Let's keep rolling.
Hey, thanks for coming out. I hope it was worth your effort. I'll be sticking around to visit a little bit with whoever wants to visit. I don't know when the next one of these will happen. We'll see what the weather's like. I will be doing some live streaming from Ellensburg as the weather deteriorates sometime next month, but I haven't announced anything yet. So thanks again for coming out. We'll see you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let me say a quick hi and goodbye to many of you, and then we will sign off and I'll visit with some of these guys. Elaine, thank you for your question. Geneva, Mr. Miner, Road to Garage 56, thank you. I'm glad that we're still communicating. That's awfully nice. Sharon is signing off. Matt, thank you for watching these. Tim wants to talk about Mel's Hole. Never in a million years. Ashley, hey, thank you for chiming in. Saber, what's going on, dog? Melissa, William, Michael Maddock, Mount Sylvia, Todd, you're always so good. You've been cranking out so much beautiful stuff, geologically speaking, on Instagram primarily. Great to follow him. I hope that you do that too. Thank you, Dan. I need to go find a rock to go sit on for a little while, I think. Okay. Lethal Lee, thank you for chiming in. All right, I think we're going to sign off here. Anyway, do you want to see Rachel and Grandpa Carl? They're regulars. You guys know their names. There's Grandpa Carl from Prosser, Rachel from Plain, Washington, and probably some others that you might recognize.
We're doing.
Once he signed up.
Oh, we're good. No, we're good. Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
Sure.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Same here, man.
1, 2, 3.
Pretty fancy camera you got there. That's a big boy.
I hope that's okay.
Thank you. Mr. Tony from Whitewater.
Oh, Mr. Tony.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Mr. Tony, everybody. You guys see Mr. Tony? Oh, I'm sorry.
Cut that part out.
Oh, good, man. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Where are you from?
Okay, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you all next time. I've got a bunch of videos that I've already recorded. I'll be posting them in the next couple of weeks, probably. Okay? Thank you. I love you, and goodbye.